Right, it's 2 o'clock, about a minute left to go, and I'm going to get started. Just for now, because we're quite a small group, we've got about 10 of you. I'm going to risk leaving us on unmuted, but I will jump in and mute things as we go. And as I say, I'm really going to focus on 2 different elements today. And that's really the notion of teacher clarity, and also that maintaining those, I think, mission critical relationships, with and between students and teacher. So I'm going to show you some examples, and hopefully these will resonate. I know there's a couple of primary colleagues on the call, so I'll show a mixture of primary and secondary, and I'll try and include different learning domains as well. So do put your hand up if you've got a question. I've got the Q&A box open, and I'll just see if I can address it. A small group, we should be able to shout out as well. So I've built a class in Verso, and in the class, a whole lot of activities here. I'm going to start off with this one here, which is a pitch to the Indonesian government. Now, one of the things we've done with Verso, if I just go to edit this activity, you'll see we've been incredibly mindful to ensure that when teachers create learning objects in Verso, they need to set the students up for success by giving them everything they need to be successful. So the first element there is the importance of, before you start anything, connecting kids to what they know, what they've learned before. So they're activating prior learning. There's a whole bunch of strategies, online and offline, that you can just link out to there in Verso to get you started. But just to remind teachers that, in the online environment, that's as important as it is in the classroom. Similarly, a well-constructed learning objective. If students don't know what they're learning, what they're doing, what they need to learn as a result of doing, why they're learning this, where it fits with what they're doing, what the context is, and what they need to do to be successful, then you won't get deep engagement. So we need to actually make sure we work through this activity builder process, thinking about at every stage, how can I set the students up with everything they need to be successful when I'm not in the room? So once you've got the activity, your learning objective in there, then you can upload resources, and you can upload video, audio from anywhere you've got that stored, or you can link to websites, you can link to YouTube clips, Vimeo, and if you are using YouTube, it strips out the commercials, so the students get the bit they need to watch. You can also, if you create your account in Verso with your Google credentials or your Microsoft credentials, it will automatically sync Verso with your Google Drive, which means as the teacher, you can just go in there and you can grab resources that you've got in Google for the students to engage with collaboratively. Okay, so that sort of really means, in terms of stimulus, you can use just about anything to get the kids in on. Then instruction, you give the students explicit instructions about how you want them to engage with the materials you provided in the top, and how you want them to engage with each other, and how you want them to give each other feedback. So typically there'd be some kind of pre-thinking there, some connecting it to what we already know, an individual response, and then so respond to the publication, and then when you've done that, you can actually respond to your peers. And what I like to do, and what teachers are doing quite a lot now remotely, is allowing students to, yes, type in their responses to the publication, share their ideas, but also what a lot of teachers are doing is switching on the audio function in Verso. So if you've got a question to the teacher, or you want to seek clarification, then ask me using the audio button, and I'll reply to you in audio. And again, that really helps to maintain those relationships between teachers and students, because they can hear me, they can see me if I apply video. What we then ask you to do is to give the students some writing frames, sentence stems, a model, what a good one looks like, so they're set up for success, or incorporate success criteria. What do you need to do? What are the core elements you need to have in your response to me to show that you've actually been successful? Because the more we can give them, the more chance they've got of meeting the requirement of the learning objective. And a core component of that kind of what do I need to do to be successful space is giving the student vocabulary, and we split that into two different fields. Contextual vocabulary, that language that's essential to the subject area, but also then academic language that the students are going to need to use to articulate their thinking when they're using that contextual language. You can see in this box here, I've got those two types of language clearly marked out. I'll show in a moment how that becomes really powerful in terms of your feedback and your assessment. What you can then do in the advanced options is you can allow the students to incorporate in their responses images, videos, or audio. And the great thing about Verso, if you're using the app as a web-based browser version or the app version, you can just record straight to the phone, straight to your device. In it goes, into the app, and there's no recording somewhere, uploading it. It just goes straight into the product. So it makes it very, very easy for students to actually just share their voice, think about the implications for modern foreign languages or younger learners, or to use video. And equally as a teacher, I can use any of these mediums to get back to the kids. So I can actually give them choice, or I can restrict them just to audio or audio and images. So if I save that, so go back to the activity, and I'll see how this all comes together. So there's the students. Students in this instance are looking at, I want them to think about different traffic calming measures that they're aware of locally, and they're going to think about writing a pitch to the Indonesian government about solving Jakarta's congestion problem. So they're going to share their ideas to Verso, and then they're going to peer review each other's proposals using a SWOT analysis in Verso. If they've got questions for the teacher, they're allowed to use the audio link, so I turn that on, and they can just talk to me and say, can you have some clarification? As a good teacher, I've given the students a model of what a good one might look like. Yep.
Okay, consider it cancelled. Hey Google.
It's okay. My dog will start. So
sorry.
No worries. What we've then got is the vocabulary, so you see where that fits in there. So a comprehensive is going to take students to engage in that quite deeply. We set them up for success. Now, what that looks like in practice, if I just put that one on, you can see on again, we can see Jamil here has responded as a student. And for those of you that are new to Verso, a couple of points for you to remember here. Students can't see anybody else's response until they've posted their own. So what I'm seeing here is original thought from Jamil. It's not, he can't lurk and wait and post after he's read other people's. This is his response, which his response lets him in the room. The other dynamic is if I click student view, this is what the students see. Peer-to-peer, it's anonymized. So when students go to give each other feedback, they're feeding back on the ideas and not the individual, which in the classroom environment is phenomenal. But when you're working as we're currently working remotely, it's a really powerful construct. So because it reduces risk for the students and actually ensures that their ideas nothing gets in the way of their ideas being heard. So everybody finds their voice. Now, if I, or a student, clicks on this, I can then respond. So the student's response in there, his pitch to the government, he's asked me a question, I activated the audio button. Hi Jamil, yeah, thanks for your question. Don't worry about the bucketing exercise. Once we've got all the responses in, we're going to start to think about what labels we might give each of those buckets. Okay, so I can actually respond to his question, text and audio, because that's what I turned on, and he's good to go. So again, the students know I'm in the room, not at the same time as them, but they know I'm in the room and I'm in there taking notice, I'm giving feedback, they're giving one another feedback, and I've activated them as learning resources for each other. Are there any questions about that one? No, we're good? What I really want to see there is the activity builder has been constructed in a way that really helps model what's meant by explicit teaching, taking you through those core stages to get to the point where if you follow through, you've got a very, very good chance of producing something that will work in terms of that deeper student engagement. I'll show you another example of that similar thing in action there. What I'm going to do this time is take you to right the way down to a Kindy and grade 1 class, where, you know, typically in the class, Kindy and grade 1, don't typically use Verso, but now they're remotely working from home, typically with somebody helping them, they can jump in. All those login issues are solved by somebody helping them get into the product. What we've got here is students' inquiry. They've been given a stimulus, which is just a simple image here of a crocodile with a baby on its head. And they're learning to ask their own inquiry questions to inform home-based research. So what's going on here is they think about, with somebody at home, all the questions they can about this picture and crocodiles. And when they've done that, they think about sharing their best question in Verso. And then when they've done that, they can access each other's by reading and listening, and they can reply and see if they can research and find out the answers. So given them, rather than a model, I've given them some basic question sentence starters just to prompt them to think about different types of questions they could ask. I've got some contextual language and some academic, again, to help them unpack. So if we go down here now, we look at some of the students. We've got a student here, Josh, and again, peer-to-peer, it's anonymous. But Josh can now share his question. He can write what he can, but he can say what he wants. So,
when did the baby hatch from the egg?
Okay, and of course,
when did the baby hatch from the...
Thank you, Josh. So of course, the teacher can then jump in and reply.
Wow, is that a longer or a shorter time than it takes for a human baby to do?
So there's conversation building between students, and also because this particular activity, remember that activity builder, I actually activated both images and text. So here we've got another question from Josh, and he's actually now posted a drawing of the life cycle of a crocodile that he's been researching. He's found out what that's all about. So again, just really, really simple stuff, but it just means the lesson is structured for clarity, and by incorporating, in this case, the audio elements, I'm maintaining those essential classroom relationships. I'll show you one more on that theme, and then we'll move on to something slightly different. Here's, when students are working at home, we want them to be reading. Here's a primary level, and there's also a secondary level one, which I'm going to give you access to afterwards. Book reviews. The students here are required to read three sample book reviews, and from those reviews, individually, build their own success criteria. What elements are incorporated into all three of the reviews you've read? I'll come back to that, Katie. Thank you for the question. So they share the title of their book, upload an image of the cover, and then they then incorporate their review, and then they check each other's reviews to see if it's met the criteria, and then they use Post to My Wall to go and make a commercial for their book that could go on Amazon, okay, using their review to inform the design. Now, here's the criteria the teachers provided the students, but the teachers also asked them to add an additional element that they found out from their research when they're looking at the sample reviews. So they're looking at the models, they're coming up with criteria, they're checking the teacher's criteria and adding an additional component part that they think is essential to good reviews. Again, the language, all important language components there. Then what we've got here are 2 student reviews. And just remember again, peer-to-peer, it's anonymous, but as a teacher, I can see everything. Now, I'll have a look at those in a second, but what I want to show you is if I click View Vocabulary, this is where I can see the extent to which my class have used that core language that I provided them with. And then I can see for individual students, there's 2 different boxes. So the green is the contextual, and the blue is the academic. So that really helps the students in giving one another review, peer feedback, but it also helps me to start thinking about the kind of feedback I'm going to give the students in this instance. So let's look at Alice's review. She's got her book there. She's put the cover, so I allowed that image upload. Jamil's jumped in and reviewed her. Now this time I actually allowed it video for so as a teacher, I can now just jump in again, straight to my mobile device, my iPad phone, whatever.
You've got all the key ingredients. I think one thing that I really like is that you've used a quote from the book, which I really appreciate. We've talked a lot about that in class. I think what would have been great if you could have added the genre. So
again, that clarity piece with all the core components of explicit teaching, accompanied by the video, the audio, and allowing the students to upload really allows them, it builds that engagement piece at the same time. I've got a question from Tom. Tom. Yep, Tom, go on. I've unmuted you.
Oh, sorry, Phil, I hit that accidentally. My mistake.
Did you? Okay, there's always, that's a Zoom bomber. Kate is asking, do you know if DET have done a PIA for Verso?
I can answer that question. Yes, we have.
Oh, that was an easy one. So yes. Is that okay, Katie?
Yep. Cool.
In terms of getting your kids, how old are your kids, Katie? Which grade?
I'm secondary.
Oh, okay. So all they need to do is go to versolearning.com.
Yeah.
And they hit create an account, and then they sign up with their Google sign up. So
they're just EduStar credentials.
So they just hit the button, sign up, and they're in. We don't ask for anything other than first name, last name, and they're off and they're good to go. And then each, you use Google?
Oh, look, let's not pretend we're a Google school, but we did get, before the kids left, before the holidays, we got them all onto their EduStar account. So our staff are very new at using any of the, Verso or Google Classroom. Right. They've never used them before.
Well, look, Katie, we are super happy to run an individual webinar with some of your teachers just to get them started.
Oh, yeah.
So if you just let us know when that would suit you, or we can run one with you at a later date and we can record it. So you can absolutely have that. Just to help you get started with some basic, give you some model activities that the teachers can use to start to build out some of their own. Then just give us.
Yeah. Because at the moment, we're trying to, so I've sort of I expect our staff to put up things onto Compass. But obviously this is more interactive.
Well, funny you should say that, and you're not a plant, but I just want to show you, and I'll get to you in a second, Amanda, just to show you, now I've got this book review. I want my students to access that. If I go to share publicly, what that does, I can share it into Google Classroom if you're a Google Classroom school, and if I'm doing that in Google Classroom, it will allow me to, this little window pops up, and I can choose the class I want it to go to. Just 1 second, put it in my Going Deeper class. And then I can say it's an assignment. And then the great thing that I can add additional resource around that to support the kids. If I'm using Compass, I can just copy the link and I can paste that link into Compass. So as long as the students have joined Verso and they're members of this class in Verso, that will take them through and they can start answering the questions. So if you've committed to getting your teachers started with Compass and they're comfortable with that, then when they're using Verso, by attaching the objects through Compass, it means one point of entry once you've got your students signed up and in. Okay.
Yeah.
Do kids need a Google account? No, they don't. So Amanda, are you a Victorian school? Amanda, let me see. Amanda, let me just turn you on. So Amanda, are you Victorian school?
No, I'm in WA.
WA. Tom, get this one. Maybe Colin. Let me see. Colin. What's
Hello.
your email? Yeah, Amanda's asking, WA school, the kids you don't need a Google account at all, and they can sign up using their Ed department emails.
Yeah, so any student can sign up. In fact, we've made it so students don't need an email address because obviously some of the younger students don't have email addresses. Google is a simple way, or Microsoft, if you've already got an account set up. But if you haven't, all you need is a username and a password. And so, for example, my kids sign up there at Victorian schools and they just use their standard username, which they might use from athletics or Wooshka. And then they just need a password. And, typically I think if your school's similar to our schools, there's a laminated card that the kids have got, so they never forget it. So it can be as simple as that. If they do have an email address, they can use that as well. And the only other piece of information we take is a first name, a last name, and the class code. And the first name and last name is really just so you can identify them as the teacher.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Are you a secondary or primary, Amanda?
I'm actually both.
Are you both? Okay. So I don't think your secondary students are going to need a lanyard, but we're good. So I'm going to show you another example here. Let me think. Let's go to a flipped classroom model. So a lot of secondary colleagues are doing this at the moment. So here's a video of a teacher just recorded on his iPad, straight in, uploaded to Verso, just showing a practical.
Okay, welcome to the lab today. Today we're going to have a look at a spinning snake. And what we've done is grabbed a piece of tin foil and we've cut out a pattern, a spiral pattern.
Okay, so it's a 56-second video, real short one. Then what the students have to do is respond talking about energy transfer throughout the process of activating a spinning snake. Lots of teachers are actually starting to put their video and recording their recorded PowerPoints using things like Jing at the top in Verso, and then having the students respond to publication underneath. Real simple if you're into your flipped classroom, flipped learning model. A variation on that is me, I won't show that one because I really look fat in it, so I'll leave it out. Another one here is modern languages. So just taking that crocodile idea a little step further. This is it's a great activity. It's the Dan Pink What's Your Sentence activity book in French. So here the students are required to think about a sentence that defines them using examples from the video. In this case, it's just a YouTube clip. Again, the nonsense is stripped out of YouTube. And as an model example there from the teacher. And then they've got some of the vocabulary they might want to be using for this. And then we've got Jamil here, who's actually got his writing and speaking.
Il était toujours concentré et prêt à se battre pour les droits des gens.
Okay, so really bad French there, but I think it's accurate. I haven't done it for like 40 years, so I think it's good. But what you're going to get is students having that conversation down the page. Really, really simple stuff. The thing I want to do is look at perhaps more substantial pieces where you are using other additional techniques. For example, using Google. If anybody's using Google Docs or Office 365 and you're using collaborative docs outside of Verso, here the students have been given a collaborative document to do some research around technologies and scientific discoveries that have had an impact on the world. I think it's grade 4 Australian curriculum science. So what they've done here is they're all dropping their research into the collaborative document. And what happens typically in classrooms and outside is that's where the learning stops. The kids have shared their research and it's over. Well, what happens with Verso is from that cooperative learning in the shared documents, having that document linked through Verso, again in that activity builder, just selecting a Google Doc or Office 365 if you're using them. And what the students have to do in here is go from that independent research to cooperative visibility in each other's research. They have to think independently and think which of these discoveries or technologies has had the greatest impact on mankind. So then they have to think for themselves, synthesize, look at the evidence. There's some note-taking pro forma in here as well. So when they share their idea, and then they have to use evidence collected by themselves or others to justify their claim. And then they have to do a little bit of research and find a third piece of evidence, that triangulation piece. And then they debate it in the peer-to-peer commentary part. Katie.
Hi, sorry. You know where it says draw a Venn diagram, where would they draw that?
Piece of paper.
And then what, just take a photo of it?
Well, they could take
share with you, or
share it in the classroom, or they could be using it, do it as in a collaborative document you might have shared with them. You know, it's you could have given them, I could have added here a template they could print out at home. The Venn diagram here is purely for their note taking, because while they're watching, there's a video link in here as well. While they're watching the video about what constitutes scientific discoveries, we've actually asked them here to categorize discoveries around their home in terms of easier, solving a problem, or both. So they just walk around the house with their Venn diagram. Like that, and they go and collect to help them actually start thinking about what constitutes discoveries and their impact before they make that judgment call. Okay, but you can equip them. I could actually give them that as a download. So you know, anything you can give the kids to be successful. But I mean, this is pitched sort of at grade 4 or 5. I think they can just draw one.
Mm-hmm.
So just to take that a step further, that's just giving access to one. Can also do, here's secondary history activity where students are required to collaborate to build an argument about whether the US was justified in dropping the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. There's a video to watch. There's a note-taking structure I want them to go through to actually start collecting evidence from that. But this time, rather than linking to one document, it links to a folder of documents where they've got a note-taking pro forma, and they've also got look. In this case, I'm using Google because that's my thing rather than Office, but the Microsoft. But here we go. So they've got a note-taking grid. So while they're watching the video, they can use that grid to start recording ideas in a way that's going to allow them to answer the question. So they're collecting evidence to support them answer that question. And then in the decision to drop the bomb element, they've got some DBQ style questions, which equally, as they're reading these short reads, they can equally take notes in that note-taking pro forma. And to focus their thinking with the I don't know if anybody using DBQ, they need to answer some questions along the way. And so all the students need to do is make a copy of this document, put it in their own account, and away they go. What I'm collecting in is their justification and use of evidence that's been drawn from these 5 short reads in the video. Okay, so it doesn't have to be just one document, it can be multiple. And again, I can just link that to my Google Classroom, to Office 365, to Canvas, whatever my students are using in the classroom. Any more questions on that, on what you've seen there? Wow, you're really easy, what an easy group. I'll just show you again, when you get started with Verso, when you sign up from the website, versolearning.com, if you are using Google, sign in with your Google credentials, and again, you'll then sync to all your documents, which makes it really easy to draw those documents for use when you're creating an activity. If you have got a Verso account, and you haven't done that, just go to the menu, edit your profile, and you can connect or disconnect accounts in there. Okay. Jackie, there absolutely is, and we can link you to that. If you just drop me a line, we'll get you something. Again, Janine, if you haven't done that, again, really happy to sit down with you for 10 minutes and just walk you through how to get started and getting you set up. Either myself or one of the team, anytime that suits you, we're really happy to do that. Okay, just that so you can talk. Is that all right, Janine? Hey, Janine. I'll just get Janine on. Okay, so yeah, in terms of videos like getting started, getting signed up, all of this stuff is in our help desk. But because we're all working from home at the moment, it's so easy for us to jump on a call and just show you in 10 minutes live, and we can help you out. Okay. And Tom's just shared in the notes in the chat box there my email address, phil@versolearning.com. Just drop me a mail, and I'm really happy anytime. 10 minutes, we can get you started, get you on, answer any individual questions, and just get you set up for success as well. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I think that's quite a lot. Again, in my class structure, Verso, you build classes, put content in classes, and when you've built your class, you give your students a class code, and they join the class. Okay? I was going to show you one more thing. What was it? Okay, so yeah, they join a class and you're good to go. Okay, any last questions before we finish up? No hands up. So I'll just leave you my details on the screen. I'll just put my email on there actually. And seriously, any time that you think, you want a hand with this, literally, I mean, today even, we'll just jump on and, 10 minutes, get you on, share screen, work alongside you, get you started. If you're a school and you want to get started, we can organise a quick one with a bunch of teachers. Really happy to help you in being successful. I know it's really, when you're learning something, you've got a lot of new things to learn at the moment in a very short space of time. Okay, last questions before I close. Great. Okay. Thanks. I'll just make sure that there aren't any last questions by making sure I've given you all. You've all got permission to talk. So, anything before we go? Okay. Thanks a million. Hopefully this session has recorded. So if you've all registered for the session, we'll try and send out around the recording. But again, just drop us a line and we'll jump on and get you started. No problems at all.